Rico Dredd, brother and clone to Judge Joseph Dredd, the perfect opposite to the man of the law. Both Joe and Rico were cloned from Chief Judge Fargo, essentially brothers, though they are clones and were near identical. Their growth rate accelerated in cloning tanks and their minds implanted with knowledge far surpassing their years. They were prodigies to the law and the future of Mega City 1. Rico was removed from his cloning tank 12 minutes prior to Joe, leading Rico to refer to Joe as his little brother, Little Joe. Both Joe and Rico excelled at the Academy of Law, though Rico displayed a higher skill set and in fact graduated top of the class, Joe coming in at second. Both Dredd brothers were the embodiment of the law, excelling through their time as cadets and even requesting to join the older cadets in the work they were doing to restore law to Mega City 1 after the Atomic Wars, instigated by President Booth. As per their training, they would perform to the highest degree, even earning their place on a raid to the White House, deposing Booth and bringing order back to the city-state of Mega City 1. Rico would eventually become increasingly aggressive, both in his demeanour and the manner in which he dispensed justice. This even stretched to the way in which he would approach his brother, becoming more competitive and determined to prove himself the better of the clones. The reasoning for this isn't clear, but it seemed to present itself after Rico sustained an injury on a training mission within the Cursed Earth, resulting in exposure to the radiation. This is something that both Joe and Rico suspected as the cause. However, Rico would push it to one side and reason that the Justice Department was in fact corrupt, and he owed it to himself to line his pockets in the process. Rico became a criminal, turning a blind eye to gangs, taking bribes, murder, protection rackets, and even forcing false confessions from innocent members of the public for crimes they did not commit. Due to his history, the nature of his birth, and the fact he had a high rate of sentencing, the Justice Department had no reason to investigate. However, Joe was aware, to an extent, attempting to persuade his brother to change and come back to the good side of the law. He was unable to coerce Rico, and even though he wouldn't like to admit it, he even found himself approaching his brother for information to the criminal underworld. Rico's violent acts would escalate though. When his former assessing judge, Judge Kenner, became suspicious, Rico murdered him in cold blood and dumped the body in a rad pit for disposal. Due to Rico's criminal activities, he began to accumulate quite a sizable wealth, and he flaunted it with little care, even moving to a downtown apartment. Rico could be considered insane or disjointed from reality. In the books he appears he has claimed one thing and yet questioned his own credibility of said claims. This comes into play when he tells the story of how he had to kill Judge Kenner, saying he couldn't shoot him due to the Justice Department tracing the bullet casings using the rad pit to kill him instead. Contrary to this, the original comic strip in which the murder appears, Rico shot Kenner with an incendiary round, then proceeding to shoot his limbs, all the while mocking him as he died a painful death. The rad pit was of course used as a disposal method. Rico would eventually allow his brother, Joe, to discover his racketeering antics, witnessing Rico murder a cafe owner and attempting to arrest him immediately. Rico resisted arrest and even opened fire on his own brother. It isn't known if Rico ever intended to hit Joe, as the shots missed, and with Rico's skill set this is highly questionable. It is thought that his intention was to force Joe to kill him, essentially opting for suicide over sentencing. But Rico would be sentenced to 20 years of hard labour on Titan. While there, he would begin to despise his brother. This would brew through the years, culminating in a deep-seated hatred. Though Rico was near identical to Joe, Titan would change this forever. Whilst on a bus full of prisoners, they became trapped. A hailstorm caught the bus and Rico began helping the survivors to get free. Whilst marching to safety, corrupt judges began killing off prisoners one by one, wanting to spare oxygen for themselves. Rico would kill all the guards and be left as the sole survivor of the incident. Prison officials rescued him, but as a means to discourage prisoners in future believing they could survive on the surface, they mutilated Rico, disfiguring him with what was dubbed the Titan treatment. Implants so he could breathe Titan's specific atmosphere, normally a punishment for the worst prisoners. In this instance, it would only serve to fuel Rico's hatred for his brother. Rico would become a father during his time on Titan to Vienna Dredd, with a reporter who was interviewing him. Rico would serve his time on Titan and return to Mega City 1, hell-bent on exacting revenge on his brother. Heading to Joe's home and confronting him, as Rico was always the superior skilled marksman, he challenged Joe to a duel to settle the conflict once and for all. Rico, in his long 20 years on Titan, had become accustomed to a weaker state of gravity. His draw was slow and Joe shot his brother dead. Judge Dredd, though the stony-faced man of the law that he is not heartless. Picking up his brother's lifeless body in his arms and carrying it onto the streets. Paramedics offering aid, to which Joe replied, "I'll make it. He ain't heavy. He's my brother." Though we have seen alternate universe versions of Rico Dredd, this is where the true Rico story ended, in his brother's arms. Always liked the parallel dynamic between the Dredd brothers. Though it is the old trope of evil twin, one good, one bad, I think it's played out in a way that isn't overly contrived or convoluted. Explained in a way which makes sense in universe, and the death of Rico Dredd offers us one of those rare moments in Judge Dredd's history where we see him genuinely emotional. A truly heartbreaking scene, but a fitting end to the corrupt judge Rico Dredd. So I've had lots of requests for this guy, and this is all part and parcel of explaining the characters within the universe of Judge Dredd and 2000 AD. I'm hoping the character building and world building will give you guys a better insight into the universe before I begin telling specific story arcs, and with that insight, you're more invested in the characters and the stories have a higher impact. All that being said, what do you think of Rico Dredd? Had you heard of him before now? If so, what was your favourite depiction? And if not, will you be checking him out looking to learn more? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And if you want to see more Dredd related videos, then hit that subscribe button to stay notified in future. If you think this video is worth it and you want to support the channel, then please head on over to my Patreon page. The link is in the description box. I've been Mr. H, and until next time, I'll catch you in the comment section.